Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live with Gina London. Gina is here today because we're going to talk about a topic that people probably have forgotten about a little bit, but it's actually really important, remote workers and how to help them feel seen, heard, and valued. Gina London, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself to my audience?
Hi, great to see you, Sam. Thanks everyone for joining in. And, I have the privilege of supporting leaders, emerging talent, middle managers all over the world. Anyone who is committed to trying to increase and improve their positive, lasting impact through how they communicate, how they behave, how they show up, a holistic gamut of executive presence, which I think sometimes is misunderstood. And so I have a small company called Language of Leadership. I have a wonderful team. And through that organization, I speak, I train, I coach, and I do LinkedIn Lives like we're doing right now. So that is free of charge for anyone who's coming on board to say, how can I refresh myself on this topic in particular? Virtual, remote working engagement. So thanks so much, Sam. It's really, as always, great to be here with you and everyone else.
Yeah, and I love some of the LinkedIn newsletters you've done recently. Well, we've done lives and then LinkedIn newsletters on the same topic. So we will be
Right.
doing a LinkedIn newsletter about this. But
Yes.
I love how the questions came in last week as well, and how you talk about the difficult conversations that people have to have, and how to. I've really enjoyed your videos lately. All these little tips about how to like lean in and look interested. All of those little tips, they're little snippets, but they're really, really important. And like for people on like virtual remote working, can you give us some tips on how to appear, maybe to start with, how to appear online?
Absolutely. And I think it's really important, first of all, anyone who might be listening, this way of working, this hybrid, this virtual flexibility that many organizations are providing, continuing to provide, isn't going away.
Mm,
So some people have kind of back in lockdown and gosh, 5 years ago already, people were really trying to power up how they would create their Zoom room, or they were trying to have virtual connections and virtual happy hours with their team and virtual coffees to try to keep engagement. Well, now it's kind of gotten back into business as usual when many companies haven't put frameworks or guidelines or best practices around. So it's a little bit catch as catch can for the organizations that I support. Some have them, some don't. Some have leaders that seem engaged through their virtual, some don't. So let's get back in alignment and remind people that you're still the presenter. You're still an opportunity to connect. And if you're just clicking on whatever platform you're on, and not taking more control, you run the risk of damaging your connection with your colleagues, not evoking the essence of who you want to be as a leader, because you're taking this stuff for granted, or you're forgetting that you have an opportunity here. And so, that first and foremost, I think, is a reminder of the call to action here, the awareness reminder, and the responsibilities that come with that if you choose to accept it, that your connections can still be more engaging even in a virtual setting. So that's number one. Get your mind right that this is something you can take more control of. No pointing fingers if things have slid. I get it. But let's start at the very beginning. As you see right now, Sam and myself coming through to you, I have myself framed in the center. I've even gotten a little bit fancy, and I have these two lines coming in that kind of move the eye from the ceiling into where I am. I've got lighting that has me evenly lit, and I'm taking up as much of the frame as I can, because if I came on the
mm.
first shot that you saw, if you saw me and I was like this, how many times I still see that look, or the tilt of the camera in a weird angle like this, or like it sends a message immediately of engagement, trust, authority, or lack of it, simply by the way you frame and light your shot. You can take more control of it. You don't have to have a logo mounted on a mirror, which some people ask me, is this a virtual background? But no, It's real. You don't have to put up a logo, but you do have an opportunity to take more control. And I think that's the first place to start. If you have curtains or you have lights windows behind you like I do, and you leave them open, and depending on the time of day, you're flooded with backlight, which makes you look like a silhouette, also not good. If I didn't have this headlight on top where it is turned on, look what happened.
Ah.
This
Wow.
isn't a connection. There's no authority here. So I choose to create the light that's more connecting. Ta-da! I mean,
much better.
Some people have bought little lamps. Some people have moved their, like if I had standing here the whole time, I have this little curtain rod coming out of my head. So I try to stand more in the center so it takes up more of the space. You think these things are small, but they instantly create an impression. And that's what we do when we're intentional communicators, is we don't overthink the details, but we do examine them and tick them off in a way we can control. So we right away create an impression of connection, value, trust. And that's exactly what you can do in a virtual setting. If you're not doing it, this is your reminder that you can and you should.
Yes. So mind first, and then how you look in the camera, in the frame.
Yes.
What would be, and why is this what has this, like, people might be thinking, what's that got to do with how can we ensure that remote workers feel valued and feel
right? Well, because the way that you show up is sending a signal to the people on the other side of your screen that you respect yourself, that you respect them, that you value your opportunity to speak with them. And these are the things, again, intentional communications requires us to think intentionally and then to take action. So if you see someone else that comes through from your team, if they've chosen, first of all, put your camera on. That's the number one caveat. If you've got the bandwidth and you're not having some real difficult day, put that camera on. If you come into a meeting room with the bag on your head in person, who would do that? Likewise, if you're going to come into a meeting virtually, have that camera on so that you are in that virtual room with the other people. Secondly, why does that help remote workers? Because if we collegial too, not just the supervisor, if you have a call for 5 minutes with a colleague because you want to brainstorm about something, it's going to be more connecting if you're both looking at each other, even if it's through a camera lens, than if you just talk. The research is very, very clear. In person, always better. Remove the hurdles, remove the distractions, don't be on your phone, et cetera, et cetera. Secondly is virtual on camera. Third then would be simply audio. And then we get into writing and text and emails and that sort of thing. But so why is it important? It's important because this is another way that we can make purposeful, meaningful human connections, albeit with the screen or miles or distance between us.
Okay. And so for people that do remote work, I'd love if you could comment, actually. Actually, we just got someone there. We got Deidre, how to keep people engaged in a virtual setup. So yes.
This is a great question. And this is something that people often struggle with too, because they've gotten out of the importance of how virtual meetings work and how the human engagement in a virtual meeting is tougher and more challenging. We know it is, but what do we do? So first of all, here's a quick research. Back when COVID was starting and lockdowns were starting and the research was beginning to come in, there was some research that was showing that the fatigue rate of people online, especially back-to-back meetings online, is about 4 times that of in person, which means you've got an hour-long meeting. It feels like a 4-hour meeting for the participants. So what does that mean for us to do? First of all, make shorter meetings. Don't have a 2-hour session without breaks. Don't have a half-hour update if a 15-minute update will do.
Mm.
Then next is make it engaging. If you, no webinar that I do, and I do a lot of virtual instructor-led training programs, no virtual program that I do is simply me monologuing to screens, because nobody is going to be listening. They might have clicked on, but they probably don't have their camera on, and they're going off and making a cup of tea, and they're just getting a box ticked by their leadership and development coordinator that says they were attending, but they weren't really attending. Same thing for you. If you have an weekly update and you're the manager or you're a colleague, and you're not saying, hey, before we start, I'd like everybody's cameras on. And secondly, I'd like to go around the virtual room, assuming that you've got maybe 15 to 30 people and you don't have 300. But a virtual connection before the content can make a big difference right away to tell people, hey, this is going to be an engaging, interactive session. So I, last week, was in Saudi Arabia by link to a team in NEOM, one of the biggest development projects in the world. And there were about 20 people in a room seated at tables. So they actually weren't all on their little screens. It made it very difficult to try to connect to those people. But the first thing I did is I made sure that there was a person with a roving mic. And I said, before we start, I want Becky, the woman who with the mic, I said, go around, we're going to go to every person. And I want you to just give me your first name and one word about resilience, because that was what we were talking about. So quickly, that little icebreaker becomes an engager. So for example, you're doing an update. Before you start with your team, you say, before we get underway, I'm going to go around the virtual room and one word about what you're thinking right now, or one word about a deal you're happy, or what something. So make your meetings shorter, make your meetings more engaging, break up your monologues with either a question or an ask. Hey, I'd love to hear more from Sam. Or, hey, I see that Deidre is sitting there. Can you tell me about something you're excited about today? Give me 30 seconds. These breakups will make people get out of passive listening, falling asleep mode. So that's one thing. You then, next on the responsibility choice for you, as if you're the speaker, you hear how I'm giving urgency and energy to my voice. Now, this is a positive topic, so I'm giving that inflection of enthusiasm, where if I were giving something very serious, I would still have projection, I would still have a sense of urgency pace, but I would have a more serious tone. I would stop and ask more questions. And that, again, your voice is the number one sense that people are receiving you from. So if you're talking like this and you're monologuing and you're just reading some information, you are going to make your audience just wish they weren't there. Likewise, one final thing, keep your energy and your voice strong. Make it engaging when you're asking questions and get some type of interaction from your audience. And make sure you're asking more questions and you're breaking up your monologuing. And finally, it's really important that you don't read if you can help it. If you've got prepared notes and you're looking down like this and you're talking like this and you've forgotten to connect with that screen or that camera, again, people are going to lose the will to live.
Oh yeah, I mean, even I know when we're doing these LinkedIn lives, like Martin has just asked a question. Deidre's here, Deborah has here and said she loves it. But even engaging with the audience when they put comments in is a huge thing, isn't it? So Martin has a question actually there.
So one thing, thank you for this. One thing I think is important to remind people of is that you're the tour guide of their experience, not your slides. Yep. So a lot of people, we still hear the whole kind of, okay, 1 second while I get up my slides. And it's kind of, we get uncomfortable because if we have to manage our own slides, we're shifting our focus from the audience to our tech. And I am the first person to say, I am not great with tech. I've gotten much more comfortable, though, and all of us should, of sharing that. Meaning, hey, keep your energy up. Hey, I'm really looking forward to sharing our sales projections for this quarter. Bear with me while I have some slides. And here's where you can build in the engagement part to the question. Going to ask, so prep them for what's about to happen. I'm going to be asking some questions of you, and we've got the chat box ready to go. If you don't feel comfortable putting up your virtual hand, pop something in the chat. I'm going to try to be watching both. I call this cooking show pattern or tour guide guidance, meaning you say, hey, look over at the left side out the left window of your bus because you're going to see that zebra. Or the same idea with the cooking show. Now I'm going to put in some flour, and now I'm going to add some oregano. Tell them what you want them to do. Remind them of what they're in store for in an enthusiastic way, if at all possible. Reminding people, giving them permission to come off mute and ask me a question at any time, to pop those questions right there in the chat, to I would love also beforehand, if you can, appoint a rabbit hole watcher. Hey, if I start to go down on a tangent, I'd love for you to raise your hand or come off mute and remind me, here's the things we want to cover, because it is unnatural. And there is a tendency to monologue. Likewise, you can also anoint or appoint a timekeeper, which could be working hand in hand with your rabbit hole watcher. You can also appoint someone in the group to be your chat box watcher if you're focusing on the slides or your notes. I think it's really important, again, give people little activities to help them be more actively engaged and not passively sitting there listening to about a third of what you're saying. So those types of practical tips, because I do this. So I know, for example, when I have groups, I will often ask the team leader, give me the participants who have opted in, and I'll make a little list of them. And I put those names in a hat. And if I don't get someone who volunteers when I present a discussion point or when I'm going to talk about a topic, I'll usually give a prompt like this. I'll say, now let's ask about who's struggling with virtual remote working. 3, 2, 1. Now that kickoff, but that back time count often prompts people differently than if I were just to ask the question.
Right.
I see it all the time when I go, question, 3. I'm looking for an answer. I'm looking for someone to come on, be brave off mute and with their virtual hand. 3, 2, 1. When I do that, it's surprising how many mute will come on. I don't wait very long because crickets in a virtual setting can be really extended and feel uncomfortable. So I might wait a couple of beats. If I don't see anyone, I'll say, I go for the volunteers, but if I don't get a volunteer, I have a hat of names and I'm going to draw out a voluntold. It always gets a laugh. And then it makes people go, oh, she knows who we are. So in a virtual setting, the more that you can let them know that you see them, the more they're going to feel engaged, not like you're going to put them on the hot seat. So you need to create a psychological safe space for people in a virtual setting. And I really believe, as I said before, your setup for how this meeting is going to go with your good morning, your shot, your energy, your quick and enthusiastic description about what they're to receive changes the dynamic from an otherwise perfunctory, another virtual meeting in a series of meetings all day long, that you're really just trying to wake them up with their energy so that they are grateful that they tuned in.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I have another question. Did you see Martin's question? You kind of covered Martin's questions, how to best address the challenges when presenting to a group.
That was my whole answer to him, in fact, Martin. So back to you again.
Okay.
Remember that they're tiny. So one thing when you're on slides, if you've got a breakout room or if you've got a quick poll, come off slides. I
Mm.
encourage people to get comfortable. If you're just reduced to a tiny slide and then I present all the time and I can't see my audience anymore, if I have my chat watcher say, "Oh, Gina, there's a question and it's a pretty decent question I can't answer quickly," then I'll go, "Oh, that's great. Let me come off slides and let me see everyone while we talk about this." Then I might even break it open to a little discussion. So your ability to be flexible and reading the virtual room with some tricks ready to go, like I mentioned, having people that can volunteer or be voluntold if you've got their names, or just call them. You don't have to have them randomly in the hat, although I do find that's a good one to help people who aren't normally the ones that
Yes.
are going to chime in, give a space to be talked to. But these techniques really are, your strategy is to keep people engaged. So your tactics are, what are the techniques to do that? And these are some of the ones that I've used to great success.
I have one that I use as
Tell
well.
me.
Okay. So for example, Martin and Deidre and Deborah, everyone who's here, where are you joining us from? Put it in the comments, because I think it would be really good for the people in the room also that are watching now to connect with each other. So
Perfect. No, that's a great one. And in fact, that's a very good one. Oftentimes I'm working with one team in one location, but there are plenty of times when I'm doing for an organization, they have teams all over the place. And that is a great connection before the content icebreaker, to get people to feel comfortable to post something on the chat. People seem to be more comfortable posting on chat than they are talking, but you still have to warm them up. So that's a great tip, Sam. Yeah, well said.
thank you. We did at Social Media Fest, actually. We asked everyone where they were joining us from. And apparently, while the event was going on, my sister Roz was in the chat, and she said they all ended up networking in the chat. As
Back over here. Yeah, exactly. No, but that's great, though. I mean, what you're hoping for is people are engaging.
Yeah. So we're already getting
Hi, Philippines. Excellent. This is great.
Darren.
Yeah, so please, let's go ahead. Post where you are. I'd love to shout out. Hi, Darren. Hi, Deborah.
Yeah,
I have to put my glasses on to actually be able to read the little names. Hi, Martin. Yay, Westmeath.
Well, thank
For
you
the
so
record,
much.
I'm here in Dublin. I'm American. If you haven't gotten to know me yet, I'm an American, but I have the last name of London, and I live full time in Ireland. So it's great to be seeing different people. Hey, Mumbai. Yay.
And I'm in Wexford.
Yes, this is just down the street from Dublin. Those of you who might not know Ireland the way I have come to learn it now.
Well, we have another question. I think it might be from Andrew. I don't think it's shown up. Tips for building psychological safety. This is a really good question.
Yeah, of course.
Tips for building psychological safety with a remote team so that people are comfortable to give direct and honest feedback.
Yes, that is essential. And again, situational awareness is critical here. So if you are meeting with a team that you're familiar with, maybe you're their manager or you're a colleague speaking to them, be very aware of what their day has been like up until this point. And you might have variables here. Who's calling in after hours because they're in a different part of the world? Who's calling in super early because they're in a different part of the world? These awareness things right away by you. Remember, we talked about you set the stage. So take time at the beginning. Your opening lines set the tone for what people are about to receive and how you identify and acknowledge them. Thanks to our team from India who's coming in later today. Thanks from our team members who are in North America who are coming in super early today. If you've got ability to name check some people, absolutely do. Hi, Bahrain. You are on my list of countries that I would love to engage in person. So please put that little note out there that I have not been to Bahrain other than the airport. And I would love to come to where you are. But when we're thinking about the topic of creating psychological safety, a couple things to be in mind. Again, your voice and your energy shows that you care. So don't say it as a one-off. You need to be able to think about your tonality. Hey, we're going to be talking about this merger. this incoming company. And I know some of you are concerned about what that might mean for redundancies, for support that we're giving. Do you see what I just did there? I slowed my voice. I'm trying to look into the camera so that I'm trying to have people feel like I'm looking right at them. And I'm also giving a more roundness to my words. Now, this is not faking it. This is being aware of what your inflection, your tonality, your pace creates that space. Remember, I've already established that our voice is the number one way people are taking signals from us right now. So you need to be aware that you can control your voice just like a musical instrument. If I walked into a meeting and said, okay, we're going to talk about this merger and acquisition, and there's some redundancies coming on. Wow, I am so tone deaf. I'm coming in like a marching band. I need to be able to come in slower and say, hey, I know a lot of you are coming in from different parts of the world. We appreciate all the work that we do. I know there's been a lot of discussion around this impending merger. I'm using this because I do have a client in Germany, a bank that is experiencing this right now. And your virtual impression that you can give needs to be dialed up or dialed down depending on the message that you're delivering. It's the same communications, awareness, choices, and the experience that you're providing. So, first of all, think about what your audience is going through: time zones, workload, what is happening in the organization, big or small. If it's a one-on-one, be also aware of that individual. Is it the busy boss that you're talking to and they really don't like meetings after 4 o'clock on a Thursday and you're talking to them at 4:30? I mean, these types of things make a difference. So creating psychological safety is being aware of the other people, being aware of the situations that they may be experiencing, and giving voice to that, giving them then permission, saying, there's going to be an opportunity for questions all along, or we're going to save 20 minutes for questions at the end. And in the meantime, I also want you to put your thoughts um, here on the chat. You might also want to give an anonymous way that people contribute in some sort of a poll as well. But thinking beforehand and prepping that is really important. And I would also encourage you, if it's a long session, remind people, like another public service announcement about maybe you had some heated discussion and now we need to bring it back into safe zone for other people to not feel off put. But your ability to be aware and make choices as that intentional communicator, this stuff doesn't just happen naturally. It is often a matter of your preparation, your experience. If you write some words about psychological safety or any kind of preface for your meeting, practice them out loud. Because if you have to look down at your words because you're reading every single line, it's not going to feel nearly as connecting or as authentic as if you look up and try to speak from the heart. This stuff seems so simple, but I promise you it's not that easy if you haven't begun to start to take it seriously and start to embed it and practice it and role model it and adjust when necessary. I was in an in-person meeting in the Philippines actually a couple of years ago, and I had the HR director say, I think actually you need to give a little more space for creating a psychological safe zone for everyone, because they're going to be presenting live in front of an Emmy award-winning former CNN broadcaster, and that's intimidating. And I had forgotten about that part of my profile that could give people pause. So it's on me to be extra aware and also be humble and reflective enough if someone gives me a correction midstream to take the feedback and course correct. It's okay. We're human. We don't get it right all the time. And that's why we're here learning together.
Exactly. We're getting lots of comments. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yes, thank you. I'm thrilled.
It's lovely. So it's actually, we're doing it in real time. We're actually doing it in real time. So did you see that question from Philip?
No, please read it, because oh, it's the one up right now. What's your thought process when it comes to planning post-presentation follow-ups like questionnaires or surveys? Do they help with feedback? I absolutely love post surveys as long as that survey feedback is distributed to the people that were there, and that there's some sort of an action that's taken as a result. Too often, again, my favorite word for today, I think, is becoming perfunctory. If it's just an exercise, like, please fill out our survey about how this went, and people fill it out, but they never see the results, or they don't actually see an action. Like, let's say the feedback was, it was super dry, or I didn't get a chance to say anything, or it was tone deaf for whatever reason. And you go, thanks for that survey, and it just goes into a file cabinet somewhere, then people are, one, going to be less likely to fill out a survey the next time. And two, they're also probably less likely to join your next webinar, or if it's a meeting that they don't have to go to, they won't go to it because they don't feel like there was the actual connection. So by all means, do post meeting surveys. If you also let them know when you're doing it, we're going to take that feedback and we're going to put it out in our internal communications channel, or we're going to share it in some way, or we're going to have another follow-up session as a result of it. So yes, make sure there's awareness of what you're going to do with it, and sequencing and managing their expectations around it. But I love, if you're going to seek engagement and you get engagement, let them know that you heard them and you're going to do something with what they said.
Yeah, actually, we're going tight on time here, so
Oh,
this is
great.
I have a little question, technical one. What application do you use for live? What application?
Right. I'll give that to you, Sam, because you're our technical, you're our control room support here.
What application do you use for LinkedIn Live? Yeah, we actually use Restream. So if you are interested in Restream, there's also other ones. There's StreamYard. So it's all a case of finding the one that you prefer.
And by the way, if I could, folks, for a second, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Sam, because Sam actually helps leaders, individuals, business people all around the world who are wanting to do live media, to want to improve the connections with others through technology and social media and whatnot. So I couldn't ask for a better host or support or thought leader, creative thinker when it comes to doing these things. And I mean this sincerely. She didn't ask me to do this, by the way.
No.
So please link in with her if you haven't already. Ask her to have a little discussion with you about where you'd like to go. I know lots of leaders globally who are being required or asked or encouraged to take a more transparent, video approachable presence. And LinkedIn's are a great way to start that. It's also a great way, in a lower stakes maybe than in front of your board, to learn how to feel comfortable on camera and share about your things at your experiences and your company or your team in a thought leader type of way. So please reach out to Sam, because not only can she tell you the platform that's going to be best for your needs, she can actually help facilitate for you if you'd like.
Well, thank you very much, Gina, for that. I'll be sure to clip that bit there.
And you know, and it's Restream. Will you let Mahmoud know it's it's capital R-E stream?
Yeah, Restream. Yeah, Restream. Thank you so much. And actually, there was another comment from Kate. Great point about the voice. So she said, great congruence of voice and message is so important. So thank you for that, Kate.
Absolutely, Kate. I'll just really reinforce this. Your voice is your instrument of connection. No matter if you're a first language English speaker, no matter if you're a junior employee or you are the senior leader, if you don't have, as Kate said, congruency or alignment or connection between your face to your voice and the words you are delivering, people are not receiving you in the same way that you probably intend. That is one of the cruxes of what I do work with on my clients, is helping them find a way to power up their voice appropriately to match the tone and the words of their message. And that makes a big difference for rapport, for motivation, for persuasion. And it is essential. It is essential that we take more control of our humanness in an otherwise AI tech-driven world.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you do it so well, Gina. And Damien, I see your query there. It could be in your LinkedIn settings. That's why your name is not showing up. And thank you for your kind words, Mahmoud. And Martin, yes, thank you so much. So, Gina, let's ask our audience while they're here. Is there any topic that you'd like Gina to cover in our next LinkedIn Lives? We do these once a month. So if there's any topic that you would like to hear Gina cover, is there any other way that people can connect with you, Gina, and if they want to work with you?
Yes. First of all, yes, we'd love your input because we want these to be relevant and practical to whomever, wherever. If you have a follow-up question, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active here. Wherever you get your social media, you can find me over on Instagram and TikTok as well. But also, as you see going on the ticker below us, GinaLondon.com. If you write to me on my website, it actually goes right into my inbox. Other team members can see it, but it goes right to me. So please, I would love if you're a leader, and every one of you is a leader because you are at least leading yourself, and you'd like to have more impact and take more control of how you connect and communicate with others. If you have a team that you would like to help support in any facet of leadership communications, and everything is communications, please, if you'd like a lunch and learn event like this or on another topic, I speak, I train, I coach, and I would love to help you wherever you are. We're talking about the power of virtual connections. I'd love to come in person, but I certainly do a lot of these to great impact, I must say.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Gina, for your time. And if anyone is in the comments and you want to connect, please do. And yeah, we'll see you next month for our next one. So thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much. Have
everybody.
a great rest of your day wherever you are, from the Philippines to India to Westmeath, Ireland.
And we'll have all of the highlights and the summary of the event actually in Gina's next LinkedIn newsletter. So do subscribe as well. Okay.